Episode 11, Precision Questioning. Have you ever wondered what it is that makes a CEO great? Or what is it that makes a great leader so great? Is it that they do all the talking? Do you think it's that they're just really good at giving advice and answering the questions that people ask? Or is it possibly that they're great at asking questions? Well, of course, again, here I go with my rhetorical question, right? The answer is yeah, it's all about people being great at asking questions. Because as we talked about in an earlier episode, even though people are going to tell you, oh, there's no such thing as bad questions, it turns out there are. Questions, like anything else, come in all sorts of flavors, right? You got your bad questions, your pretty good questions, your really good questions, and your amazing questions. And the thing is, the people around you are constantly judging you, whether or not you know, by the way that you ask questions. I think a lot of people didn't really know that. They think, oh, people are judging me by like what outfit I'm wearing or something. Fine, that's probably true. But people are actually judging you by the way that you ask questions and the types of questions that you ask. Think about it for a second. When the stone surfer dude comes up and says, hey, dude, what's that? No offense to the stone surfer dude, but this type of question is not going to be very useful at a job interview, for example. But I guess if your buddy is offering you some strange tube to put stuff on the surfboard and you say, dude, what's that? That might be actually the perfect question in that context. But I'm assuming that you're somebody who might be preparing for an interview or getting ready for a client meeting or a sales prospect meeting or whatever at work. And you might think, boy, I really got to go in and prepared. I got to get all the answers lined up. But it turns out that sometimes going in with the questions can be the better approach. Because when you ask the right questions, you drive the conversation in a way that can align people toward getting clarity in just about any situation. And I think actually people who are successful in sales already know this, right? You get people thinking for themselves and you witness it and you listen and you kind of steer the conversation. And if you do it right, you can get the other people talking, which means that you're more in a listening mode. And look, I have interviewed hundreds of 20-somethings for various jobs over the course of my career. And what I'll tell you is the more you can get the interviewer, so not you, right, talking, and the less you're talking all about yourself and the details about your life, the more likely you are to actually get that hiring offer. Because people generally like to be the ones doing the talking. So going into a meeting or an interview with a question strategy might just be a game changer for you. So earlier we talked about expositors. Remember those? The method for learning difficult concepts effectively, where I talked about polygons and then the Graduate School of Psychology. Well, expositors were about understanding ideas or difficult concepts. Precision questioning is actually about engaging with people. And when you ask good questions, especially if you're doing this in your job interview or networking or let's say at a business meeting, two powerful things are going to happen. First, you learn. And second, you get the other person talking. And remember, I said it before and I'm going to say it again. The more you can get the other person talking, the more connected they're going to feel to you. So this is almost like a trick, but it's not really a trick. This is just the way that we are. You've probably met people who kind of are good at asking questions and they get you talking and they make you feel comfortable. So you've also probably met people who just go on and on and on talking about all this random stuff about themselves or different things. And you're like, I didn't even ask you about that. Why are you telling me all this? You really think I want to hear this? Wow, I don't want to have to hire you and have somebody like you going around the hallways at work. It's going to be like distraction at scale. So today what I want to do is walk through the 7 precision questions, or 7 of these types of questions that you need to know. And then let's explore how to use them when we're doing communication in the real world, like with interviews and things like that. These questions are simple. And when you use them well, they're going to sharpen your clarity, deepen your understanding, and ultimately move conversations forward in such a way that you're going to create better connections and collaborations with the people around you. So here we go. Question type number 1. The go, no go question. Do we even need this conversation? Do we actually need to discuss this? And by the way, I should give credit again to Dennis Matthies at the Center for Teaching and Learning. I don't think I did that, but he also introduced me to this, not just expositors, but while I was at Stanford, he had a class literally called Precision Questioning, and I'm going to use some of the material from that. So the first question, and it is a little bit in order here, is the go-no question. Do we even need to discuss this? Because before scheduling a meeting, you want to ask, is this meeting even necessary, or could it be better resolved just via an email or a text message or some kind of post on Slack? What it's going to do is protect your time and keep you focused. Many conversations or many meetings are going to happen just because, well, that's what we do. It's like a habit. They're not really necessary. So what I want you to do is use this go, no-go question before the meeting, before writing a long email, or before having a deep discussion, because clarity is going to happen by deciding whether we even need to have this discussion at all. Of course, if you're just a kid and they're telling you about the polygon, you probably need to sit there and listen to it. But if you're in your 20s and somebody says they're going to start teaching you all about polygons, the first question you need to ask is, do I even need to be here? Why are we even doing this? Can this wait? I don't really want to learn about polygons. This isn't moving me in a direction I want to go. The meeting is canceled. The polygon meeting has been canceled, people, because been there, done that when I was in 5th grade. Okay, what do you mean? So this is going to be precision question number 2. What exactly do you mean by that? So an example is when an interviewer might say, we need someone who can take ownership. And you might say, okay, what does ownership look like in this role in terms of day-to-day? How does it manifest itself in my day-to-day work? The reason this is powerful is because most confusion is going to come from vague language. And what clarification is trying to do is create a shared understanding. You want to use it when things are vague, right? It's ambiguous. Did you mean this or did you mean that? And actually, that was one of my favorite examples of clarifying question. So for example, if somebody says, hey, we need you to take more ownership at work, you might say, oh, okay, wait, do you mean you want me to take on more responsibility of making sure that the work gets done by me doing it? Or do you mean you want me to take on more of a responsibility of making sure that the people who are doing the work really own the work themselves? In other words, are you looking for me to get the work done myself and own it, or own the management of the other people? So that type of a clarification question can reduce ambiguity. And let's face it, instructions are often unclear. Quite frankly, the person saying that, right, oh, you need to take more ownership, they may not even know what it is they're trying to say. So when you ask a clarification question, you are actually helping them. You're actually helping them to clarify their thinking, which then makes it possible for them to communicate what it is they're even trying to say to you in the first place. Okay, precision question number 3, assumptions. What assumptions are we making? So an example at work might be, we assume that this feature that we're about to launch will increase user engagement. I hear this all the time. And you might ask, okay, what would have to happen for that assumption to be true? Why are we assuming this feature will increase user engagement? What other assumptions are we making? Are we assuming that if we launch this feature, it will increase user engagement right now? Hidden assumptions are going to often drive people's decisions. And the problem is, as you know, right, if the assumption is wrong, well, guess what? Your decision might fail. So I want you to use this what are we assuming question before you make major decisions, when there's a lot of uncertainty. And maybe if you're in a room where people just seem a little too confident that this is the obvious thing to do, that's an indicator that maybe it's time to think a little bit and try to surface some assumptions before we take action. Number 4, the basic critical question. How do we know this is true? And Dennis Matthies, in his list of 7 questions, put this one right in the middle. Number 4, right? So it was right in the middle of the 7-question list. And this one was, I think, his personal favorite. Dennis, if you're listening out there, you can put a comment in and clarify, is this really your personal favorite? But I just have a feeling that this was your favorite. The way that you communicated this to us in your seminar, you were so passionate about the basic critical question. It was basically, how do we know this is true, right? What is the evidence that supports this? How do we know this is true? And I think one of the reasons why Dennis liked this question is you can kind of keep doing that, right? Somebody says, well, there's climate change and it's going to affect us all. Really, how do we know that's true? Oh, well, there's carbon emissions and other gases that are getting emitted into the environment. Oh, really? That's a problem? How do we know this is true? Right? We keep on going down that rabbit hole of how do we know this is true. It's a very interesting conversation, by the way. Lawyers like to do it. Warning, if you're a lawyer, you're probably getting trained on the basic critical question, and you will probably be annoying because you will just keep asking this until I don't know if it's true. So stop asking me, right? How do you know it's true that this person is good at their job? Now, this is powerful because what it's going to do is separate people's belief from the evidence, right? So, in summary, strong thinkers are going to ask the question, how do we know, right? What are you basing that on? Okay, number 5 is going to be causes. What is causing this? Why is this happening? So think of this as instead of asking, why is that project delayed? Let's say at work, you might ask, what are the main factors causing the delay? And sometimes we ask, what is the root cause or the primary cause for this delay? What this is going to do is move you away from the symptoms into that underlying root cause. Because solving the symptoms is rarely going to solve the problem. You're going to want to get to the root of the issue, right? You're going to use it when problems seem to be repeating. So if something keeps happening at work over and over again, or somebody feels stuck, or something in the company feels stuck, or something in your life feels stuck for that matter, it just seems to be happening over and over again, that's when you're going to figure out that you should ask the question around cause. What is it that's causing this? Because clarity is going to improve when we move from, yeah, that's not going so well or something, to the root cause. So we understand why this is happening. Number 6, well, think we have cause. What do we have? Effects. So what will happen? What are the consequences? What are the likely consequences if, right? So the example might be in a job interview, right? What typically happens when someone succeeds in this role? How does their impact show up over time, right? Do they get promoted? Do they get a big vacation? Do they get paid more money, right? What happens if they're really successful? What is the impact they make, let's say, on the client or what have you? Now, why is this powerful? Well, it's forward thinking, right? Every decision is going to create consequences. And then 7, action. This is probably my favorite question. I'm somebody that really likes to get into the what is the next step. So if we do that, great. Then what do we do? What should be done? So as an example, it might be something like, what would be the most useful next step from here? So at the end of a meeting, everybody's excited, or we did the training and we're feeling like, okay, great, we're certified to deliver this new offering to our clients, but great. What is the next step from here? What do we do? Clarity without action does not produce progress. We have to have action. So you want to use this pretty much at the end of a conversation or at the end of a meeting. Let's say you're meeting with somebody for an informational interview. The meeting's coming to an end. A great habit is to say, okay, what are the next steps coming from today? Or what do you think should be done coming out of this discussion that we had? Because it was such a great conversation. I learned so much. What can we do to continue momentum here? So I want to dive into precision questioning in job interviews because I've been asked to do this as part of a course I'm teaching, co-teaching at Dominican University here in San Rafael. And I really do feel, I just had a great meeting on when do we want to introduce precision questioning to college students. And I think we should introduce precision questioning when we're going to get into job interviews because most candidates are going to focus only on answering the questions. They're going to go in thinking, all right, there's a bunch of questions like what is your biggest weakness or what are your greatest strengths or how do you think you can help our company? They usually give you these questions and then you spend all your time trying to come up with answers to these. So you're like, I'm prepared. I have all the answers. But if you're a great candidate, yeah, sure, you should have answers. I'm not trying to take anything away from that. But I want you to think about having some powerful questions at your fingertips because when you ask thoughtful questions in an interview, when you're the one asking these structured questions, you're going to learn. You're going to learn what does success look like? What are the challenges? You're going to learn whether this role even fits you in the first place, and you're going to build connection. And I cannot underestimate the value of this. You're going to build connections because when the interviewer does most of the talking, guess what? They're going to feel more connected with you. They're going to feel like you actually care what they have to say. It's a way of treating them with respect, and it lets you to build a relationship with them. I guarantee you, you'll stand out as compared to the other interviewees. If all the other interviewees are just talking about themselves and going blah, 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 and they're giving their canned answers to the questions that they were supposed to answer. But you're the one that gives very concise answers, but then shifts back and asks questions that really, well, let me give you some examples of the questions you might ask, right? What distinguishes someone who can really thrive in this role? Or what are the biggest challenges facing your team right now? I mean, think about that question. That's a question that shows you care about what are their challenges. I mean, this is something that the interviewee should really be able to answer. By the way, if the interviewee is like, oh, I don't know, like if they don't know that they have any challenges or they can't articulate those to you, that's actually kind of a red flag, right? This leader or this person, if they're going to be your boss, maybe you don't want to work with them because they haven't really thought about what their challenge is. Or what surprised you most when you first started working here? These are the types of questions that are going to create real conversations, making it possible to connect. How about what outcome are we trying to achieve? What are the assumptions that we're making about this, client study that we're doing? Or what is causing this issue of user retention, being a problem for us? Or what would success look like? Or what is the most important next step coming out of today's meeting, right? Those types of questions, they're going to lead us to better performance and even better relationships at work. Now, most people are going to tell you that communication is about speaking clearly. That's true to some extent, but great communication is about asking clearly when you ask questions. So precision questioning is going to improve learning. It's going to improve the decisions you make. It's going to help you to build better relationships. You're going to build more confidence. It's going to create more opportunities. It's going to do a lot for you. So now it's your turn. Over the next week, I want you to intentionally use precision questioning in a real professional conversation. So this could be a job interview, maybe with one of your weak ties. Remember those people that you're just doing informational interviews with? Or this could be a real job interview where you're actually going for the job. It could be if you already have a job, like you're meeting with a manager at the company or a client or prospect. If you're in sales, it could be a networking discussion where you're meeting with other colleagues. It's something that has to do with your 20s in a professional setting, most likely is where you're going to use these questions. And I want you to use at least 3 of these questions. Remember, you could use something like, what does success in this role really look like? That might be a clarification question. Or what are the main challenges right now? That could be the cause. What is it that's causing us to not make success, or what's blocking us from success? What assumptions are we making? That might be the assumptions question, right? That's a pretty broad way of asking it. What typically happens when things are going well, right? What are the effects of us doing our work really well? What is the next step coming out of our discussion here? What is the most useful thing we could do? If we could only do one thing, what would it be, right? That's a question of action. And then I just want you to notice after you ask these questions, how did that go for you? Did you learn more than you might have otherwise? Can you point to something that you actually remember learning from this conversation? And how do you feel the other person responded? Did you notice that the other person seemed a little bit more engaged? Did they almost seem to light up or feel a little bit more interesting to you? Because when you're asking better questions, your conversations are going to deepen. And as these conversations start to deepen, it's going to be worth it to reflect on the learnings that you're having and to capture the insights that you're getting from these conversations, whether they be through your job interviews or if you already have a job and you're meeting with clients, or like I said, if you're doing sales, regardless of what you're doing. I want you to explore keeping a journal. Look, I hate to sound like that annoying, middle school or 8th grade teacher, whenever it was that you had a person telling you you need to keep a journal. But now that you're doing these questions in a way that can create these more deeper understandings of situations that you're going through, you're going to find yourself wanting to reflect after these meetings and say, wait, what did I learn? What question was effective? What questions should I ask next time? And circle those so that you're prepared for the next time you meet with these people to have follow-up questions, and start putting these precision questions to work for you. In the next episode, we're going to get into journaling and the power of reflection. It's going to be something that's going to help you clarify your thinking and ultimately make better decisions. And it turns out that keeping a journal might just be the single most powerful thing you could possibly do to make your 20s be a complete success. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.